Hello again. It's me, Aventurine. I got one more presentation here. I might do a third one later. I have this third one where I just talk about myself for 25 minutes, but people find it interesting. But anyway, I wanted to put this together because we found after doing a lot of these meetups that we did have some people that did have experience participating in the tournaments, but then others that were just curious and they had no idea what Numerai was about or how to get started. So that's why we kind of started with a little intro to machine learning. This is the intro to Numerai itself. So let's get into it. Okay, so here's an overview. I'm not just to talk about Numerai. I'm not actually going to go over them as a hedge fund. I'm going over the intro to Numerai as in just the tournament side of things. But if you're interested in learning about the hedge fund itself, if you go to is it Numerai.fund, right? Yeah, Numerai.fund. That'll give you info on the actual hedge fund. So here we go. Numerai is a data science competition where you build machine learning models to predict the stock market. Numerai has a free data set. As I was talking earlier, it's made of clean and regularized financial data. The data set is obfuscated so that it can be given out for free and modeled without any financial domain knowledge. So what that means is Numerai probably spends anywhere between probably $100,000 to $1 million a year on financial data. But with all the contracts and somebody can't pay for something and then give it away for free. That'd be buying Netflix and then giving everybody your Netflix password. So their way around that was all the IDs, the eras, the features, all the data that they buy, they clean it up, create a data set, and then they obfuscate it, meaning they encrypt the data so that you don't know what you're training on, and that's what you're able to download. So each row of the data sets corresponds to a stock, so these weird IDs are stocks. At a specific point in time represented by the eras. So you'll see the ID and then you'll have the different eras, and then if you were to build that out, then you would get a chart of that feature of that stock that you don't know what it is over a certain time period, which you don't know what the time period is. So it's everything is just kind of encrypted. The features are quantitative attributes, so they could be things like P/E ratio, all your normal stock analysis data points is in there, you just don't know where it is. And then the targets that you're trying to measure, what you're trying to predict when you're running your models, is a measure of the stock market returns 20 days into the future. So that's that. So your objective is to build a machine learning model to predict the target. That's the simplest way to put it. This is the most example model. You can actually go in right now, and as long as you knew how to download the data set and then tell it to run this little teeny light GDM model, you can actually submit those as predictions and participate in the tournament. But of course, these, this whole model itself, it's kind of its default, and there's no feature selection, all this other fancy stuff that we've been talking about, all that stuff's not included. So of course, this will probably have a lot of volatility and might have some issues depending on what parameters you have in here, etc. But there actually is a full official example model link, and later on there'll be a way to get all these slides too, which you can click on. But there's an example model notebook that you can go into the Numerai GitHub and check it out and actually run it. And there's actually a model that's in the leaderboard that you can actually see the performance of what that example model has been running over the time period. So here's the submissions. The submissions used to be weekly. Within like the past year, so they've actually transitioned into a daily. So every business day, which is during the week, new live features are released, which represent the current state of the stock market. Your job is to generate live predictions and submit those to Numerai. The tournament's organized into rounds, starting Saturday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday every week. Each round spanning 1 month, and when they say 1 month, it's 20 trading days, which is, ends up being a month when we include the weekends. And then 5 new rounds starting each week, which is your days of the week. And then we end up with this like crazy looking overlapping schedule. So at any given time, we can have up to 25 overlapping resulting rounds. So you can see like here is like kind of your max, where you have like a bunch of different. So every day new data is coming out, and your model hopefully is automated, and then getting those new predictions based on the new data and just resubmitting every single day. If that makes sense. Here we go. So then here's like the submission windows with the times, and like all this stuff too is also on their website. And if you go to like the Numerai website and go to the docs, like all this stuff that you're going to see is on there. There's your submission windows. There's sort of 2 different ways that you can actually submit. This is like, you can use this Numerai API to actually upload your data sets through the API. Each model that you create will have its own key. You can throw those in your like environment variables or whatever. That's the safe way to do it, of course, and like upload it through the API. Or if you just run your model and you have it like output as a CSV, you can just manually upload that too. But of course, like if you're going to be doing this daily, every single day, like you don't want to do it manually. Like you want to automate this as much as possible. So you have like the API here, and then a little bit later we'll talk about actually automating the models itself and a bunch of different options for like actually getting that, right here, automated. So the simplest way to automate your submissions is to upload your entire prediction pipeline to Numerai. That doesn't mean like you're sending them like your code or whatever. It's just you're automating your submissions to upload your prediction pipeline to Numerai. So just those prediction files, and then once uploaded, Numerai is going to take care of running it every day to generate the live submission. So like you have these like official cloud solutions which use AWS. There's like a light version and then like a heavy version. If you have like a super complex pipeline, like a neural network that does like a whole bunch of extra fancy stuff, like you might want to look into the compute heavy. But if you're running like some more simple stuff, like just some XGBoost model that's like hyper tuned in your own fancy way with like a little bit of feature neutralization, like you can mess around with the compute light. And so there's like, if you click on these links, which is on the docs too, it'll give you like the whole rundown and setting that up. There's also the DIY for Google Cloud, and then there's, for those that don't want to use any kind of cloud and just want to do it locally, they have some examples of how you can set up like some local automatic pipelines for like submissions as well. And it's all based on cost. Like I think for me, I run like 10 models on AWS, and I think I spend like $5 a month or something, which is like not that much. I mean, literally it runs for, once you run your initial setup and then you're just doing those daily submissions, like it's not really running for that long. So you're not using too much on the AWS side where it's going to cost you a whole bunch of money. But for those that are trying to save like any money possible, you can just set up a local job here. If you miss the submission window of the current round, you can actually still upload your model, but it will be considered late. A late submission will still be scored on correlation, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but will not receive a true contribution score, which I'll talk about TC later. If your submission is late, it's not included in the meta model, and then it has 0 impact on hedge fund returns. So of course, a late submission is not eligible for staking and payouts. So I mean, they'll still measure your correlation at any point. If you submit late, you're just not going to get the benefits of any kind of payouts or any of that stuff. If you miss a submission window of the current round, your submission will be automatically queued for the upcoming round. So this is like if you have something in the cloud and for some reason it like maybe missed the trigger or whatever. If it hits the trigger and it doesn't go through, like it takes too long to run, you can use your predictions generated for the previous round and submit in the current round, if that makes sense. Might not make sense now, but it might make sense later when you start messing around with this. I put staking here. This is inside joke, inside Numerai joke. But when we're talking about staking here, we're talking about staking, not like stake the food. This is actually using the NMR token, which is the native cryptocurrency for Numerai itself that they created. If you actually want to upload models and actually get paid for what you're doing and the work that you're doing, this is the only way that you get paid. They don't pay out. Like, who does Kaggle here? Anybody does Kaggle? So like the way Kaggle's typically set up is like each competition is like a set time window. It has like a set like money pool, and then like only like the top percentage of people like get like a chunk of that like cash payout. Numerai is different in the fact that they have a crypto that you stake behind your model, and it's sort of this like skin in the game idea of the more confidence that you have in your model being good, and the more the crypto that you stake on that model, the bigger your payout's going to be. But it also has the opposite effect of if you give them a bad model, that it can actually burn your stake as well. So after the 20 days of scoring for each submission, the models with the positive scores are rewarded with more NMR, while those with negative scores have a portion of their stake burned. And this is like the aspect of like where kind of the crypto comes into the picture. Like you can't, like with a Kaggle competition, if you give them a shitty model, you just don't get paid. But that really doesn't incentivize you to like make a good model. So like a lot of times, like with Kaggle, you can like submit like a bunch of models, right? Like you can just kind of just keep shooting in the dark and just like hoping something hits. So a lot of the times, what happens with Kaggle is like, it's just kind of this set time period. So if you have like a really, really volatile model, you know, every once in a while you might get lucky, if that makes sense, and you might hit in that like really top percentile. But if you were to run that over again and again and again, like you'll find that you might be in the top 5%, and the next time you're going to be in like the bottom 20%. So like the model's really volatile. So with the way that the Numerai competition is set up, it's like a consistently running competition. So you'll be able to see over a long time period like how volatile your model is going to be. So when it comes to staking, I mean, this is coming from me personally. Like I ran models without staking for like at least 3 months before like ever putting it in. Like I want to have the confidence that if I'm going to put my own money behind something, that it's actually working good. And you're not going to know that after like just submitting one time. Like you're going to have to submit every day for a long time period to know how your model's looking. So behind the scenes, Numerai combines all the predictions of all the staked models into what they call the stake weighted meta model, which then in turn is fed into the hedge fund for trading. So this is like where the magic comes in. This is like something that no other hedge fund in the world has ever done before, where instead of like hiring their own quant teams and their own data scientists to run their own models and do everything internally, it's like, why don't we just give away the data to everybody and then create this competition for people to get paid? And instead of getting submissions from a group of 20 people that we hired, we're getting like thousands of submissions every single day with data coming in from data scientists all over the world. So like I said, the staking serves two purposes, which can't really happen in a typical like currency market. This is why it has to be in a crypto market, is that this skin in the game allows Numerai to trust the quality of the stake predictions depending on how much you do decide to stake your models with. And then payouts and burns continuously improve the weights of the meta model. Does that all make sense? Does anybody have questions on the staking part or the crypto part? Because I know who's never bought any crypto before? Okay, so a couple. So real quick, what's your why haven't you bought any crypto before? What's like your main reason? Is it a scam? It's like what? Because there's usually like something that triggers that. Like what is it? Volatile?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how come you never bought crypto before?
I don't understand it enough to understand it.
I like that answer. So yeah, it's odd, but I hope the way of doing it this way kind of makes like a little bit more sense. Like this isn't like a Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever. This is a utility token made just for this tournament, just to use as like a staking for the tournament itself. Like there's really not too many other use cases for NMR besides participating in tournaments, but I mean we'll talk about one other kind of utility that NMR has that like we as the council have kind of created on the outside, but I mean, does it kind of make more sense now? Like why you can't use, Canadian dollars or USD or whatever you want to call it, like typical fiat currency, like it has to be crypto. It's actually based on a smart contract that the company developed. So like all this stuff is automated. Like your scoring, all that stuff. So here's how to stake once you get to that point. You go over to this staking. Of course, you're already going to have an account. You're already going to have your model created. You're already going to be submitting. Now you're deciding, okay, now I want to have confidence in my model. I'm going to put in a little bit of my own skin behind that model because I want to make a little bit of extra like side money from all this work that I've been doing. So you can set your stake amount here. Usually what you would do is like the biggest exchange would be like Coinbase. If you have a Coinbase account, NMR is traded on Coinbase. You go and buy however much you want to buy of NMR. You send that to the wallet that's created when you create your Numerai account. And then here's where you choose how much to stake. The staked NMR is actually going to be locked in your wallet. It's going to take 1 month. Why is it locked for 1 month? Anyone? Yes.
It takes 1 month for the result.
Yeah, there you go. So it's not like they're holding it back because they're being a-holes, or like they want to scam you or whatever. As soon as you stake NMR on a round, like we talked about earlier, each round is 1 month long. So there's they'll give you a daily score, but the only score that matters and the only score that's used to calculate like your payouts is on the very last day. So there's no possibility of you being able to, that'd be like betting on a hand of blackjack, and then like after they give you your 2 cards, you're like, oh, like let me get my bet back or whatever, if that makes more sense. So yeah, it'll actually sit there. But of course, when you go to release it, if you wanted to like, say you staked for a bit, you made some NMR, you want to, cash out, send some stuff back to Coinbase, and convert it back to regular currency and move it to your bank. You would just go into the release section and send it back. But of course, when you go to release anything, it's going to take that 1 month period to release back to your wallet. So hopefully that all makes sense. So here it talks a little bit about the payout part. Payout is primarily a function of your scores, of course. If you have a positive score, you get a payout. If you don't, your stake will burn. But the maximum payout or burn per round is capped at 5%. So it's not like you put in $1,000 worth of NMR and like your whole model is like the worst performing model. Like you just lost all your like NMR. Like it's capped each round at 5%, plus or minus 5%. And then you kind of see this crazy like payout factor chart. Where this is kind of calculating is, I don't know how many data scientists are submitting right now. Does anybody know like the latest numbers? It's like a couple thousand, right? 1,000, right? Yeah, so there's about 1,000 data scientists that are staking in the tournament right now, all over the world. And then each of those 1,000 data scientists, of course, like stake whatever they feel comfortable with staking. The more total like higher that's staked into the tournament, the lower this payout factor is going to be, because there's like a set pool of NMR that was created for the tournament itself, and of course it's not unlimited. So at some point, the more you put in, like they're going to have to cap the payouts to make that pool last, because if not, then they're going to have to figure out a way to replenish the pool, which could be like, we're still fighting over what that's going to be. It could be like the company's going to have to like rebuy NMR on the open market to like replenish the pool, but they have this here just for you know, making sure that that pool stays going for a long time. So here's the two different scores that they score on. You have correlation and true contribution, and then you can control the multipliers. So we'll talk about like what these two numbers mean, but you can actually choose like how you want to get paid out, depending on how your model performs. This is what we kind of talked about already. NMR is the cryptocurrency that powers the staking and the payouts. This is like where your wallet would be once you create, anytime you create an account with Numerai, like Numerai automatically creates a wallet for you just for NMR. So here we'll get into the scoring. Am I good on time? What time am I supposed to end?
This time is
Keep going? Okay, scoring. So there's two types of scoring. Correlation, which is your predictions correlation to the target, and then your true contribution, which gets very interesting. That's your predictions contribution to the hedge fund's returns. They also have some informal scores that aren't used for payouts, but it actually is set up to use to kind of help you with your model building. So one of those numbers is feature neutral correlation, which is your predictions correlation to the target after Numerai neutralizes against all the features. And then you have this correlation with the meta model. That's not even there anymore, is it? Is that correlation with the meta model number still there?
Still there.
Oh, okay. Cool. That's your predictions correlation to the meta model. Yeah, this is gonna, for like those that don't participate in the tournament or haven't even gotten into like the data science part, like this is gonna get very boring real quick. But within a single round, submissions will receive 20 score updates. This is what I'm talking about, where you put in your stake, you submit, you're gonna get scored every single day during those 20 days until the final score is computed, and then that's what they're gonna base the actual payout on. And the reason why that's done is because those 20 days, the main target is built on 20 days of returns, ignoring the first 2 days after the arbitrage closes. I'm gonna actually skip all this craziness right here, because I think I put a nice picture. This is a better picture. This is like your submission. Your first 2 days are ignored, and then your 2 days of data processing, and then you're gonna get your daily scores, and then on the very last day, that would be the payout day for that round. And then of course, like every time you restart a new round, like these are gonna start overlapping with each other, like from that first score. And then you have the leaderboard, which is on the Numerai website. I don't know when this screenshot was taken, but I think there's 1,000 data scientists submitting, but of course a lot of them are submitting more than one model. So there's definitely over 5,000 staked models on Numerai, which is actually kind of crazy to think about. That there's like thousands and thousands of these prediction files going in, and then they're merging all of these together into a meta model, and then they're throwing them through a hedge fund optimizer, and then they're figuring out like what they're going long and short on, and they're making all those trading decisions based on 1,000 anonymous data scientists that are submitting over 5,000 stake models to them every single day. So it's just kind of crazy to think about how the hedge fund works as a whole. After you submit, there's a way of getting your diagnostics like on your own. And this is just like sort of a way that it's like a tool that you can use to compute and visualize your scores over this validation data set that you can also download from them. Every time you submit, they're gonna run it for you, but a lot of times people use these like diagnostics for helping with their model creation. You'll especially see like this FNC, this feature neutral correlation V3, like a lot of people take a look at that number to help them with TC, which we'll talk about here in a second, because they have found that the higher this feature neutral correlation, like the more correlated it is of having higher true contribution to the hedge fund. So this is kind of getting more in depth on correlation. I'm not going to get into all this. This gets like very boring. But this is like the way that this whole section down here below, this is how Numerai uses a special variation of the correlation, which they call Numerai correlation. It's like their own calculation of core because they have to do this to match their live trading process. So they have to adjust things just a little bit different to actually create that score. And then TC is like a whole different animal. Like we could probably have like a whole hour-long presentation just talking about TC by itself, but there's a nice big long Medium post that you can read on it, and that's also on the website. And there's just this crazy way that TC is computed, and you can see that it's like very in-depth and interesting. But essentially, like the easiest way to describe TC is it's a measure of your model's contributions to the hedge fund's return. So what they're actually doing is when you submit, besides actually scoring you on your correlation to the live data that's coming out, based on how much you're staking and how much your predictions helped the hedge fund, the more you help, the higher your TC is going to be. And if you don't help the hedge fund, even though you stake and your correlation might be good, but you actually don't help the hedge fund, you can actually get negative TC as well. So it's kind of an interesting measurement. There's like definitely been lots and lots of talks and very long forum threads and discussions on TC and what's the best way to go about it. Here's a very fancy way of sort of visualizing what true contribution is. You have your like models. This is us over here. This is all we have to worry about. We're the ones that submit the different kinds of models. Each of those models have different sizes of stakes here. Those all kind of go in. They create that stake-weighted meta model. And then this below here, this is all on the Numerai side of things. So they have an optimizer that uses convex optimization, which turns the signals into a portfolio by constraining different risk factors. So like they have their whole risk management team that's looking at lots of different fun things. Some stocks you might recommend to them might not work trading wise because of like the float of the stock, like the volume of the stock might be like too low to trade at the levels you're telling them to trade at, if that makes sense. So like essentially it would be impossible to make the trades that you're telling them to make. So once that all kind of goes through the optimizer, you get your overall portfolio returns, and then that feedback comes back around, and that's what calculates your true contribution. Does that all kind of make more sense now? Any questions on that? No, I have lots of questions still. This is kind of black. The one thing that we've always kind of like talked about is this everything below this line is like very black box. You know, you could show us the calculations all day, but to like kind of come up with like this arbitrary number of like how much you're contributing to hedge fund, I still find very interesting. But I trust them. They got some smart ass people working for them. So, you know, like I was telling you about the forum posts, you also have like Numerai's chief data scientist, Mike Oliver, who's done like YouTube videos, like Discord hangouts, forum posts, like all sorts of interesting talks about how to optimize for TC. So like I was telling you with this like feature neutral correlation, B3 is the best metric. So if you can actually figure out your ways to like tune your model to create like high feature neutral correlation, that should translate to higher CC, which should translate to higher payouts. So what is FNC? It's the correlation of a model with a target after its predictions have been neutralized to Numerai's features. We talked about like the data set really early on. It has like a certain amount of features. I'll just kind of skip ahead here because this is where I actually talk about the data. This is the latest like data release, this V4.2, which they're calling the brain data set. It's the latest data set. It contains 666, of course, good number, new features and 12 new targets and new feature groups to give data scientists a way to do feature selection. So what's interesting with like this data release is it's so large. What they've actually done is now they have these like feature groups. So like if you have a computer that's like can't even handle the processing of their full data set, you can actually say, like my computer can't handle this, can I just get like this medium set of features and work with like a smaller data set? You can actually tell it what you want and like how much you want to train with. Of course, like the bigger the data set, the more the data, the better it should be, but a lot of times people are constrained with the systems that they're using. Like if you're just running a laptop, like you're probably not gonna be able to run through 2,132 features and 48 targets with like millions and millions of rows of numbers. Like it's just gonna, like your computer's just gonna freeze. So there's like a full informational post about this like new data set, and then you can, this is like the link here where you can track the example model, which is in the GitHub. So you can actually see the performance of this really simple model over a long period just to see what it looks like. That's me virtually. So thanks. I did include at the end the actual Numerai GitHub. They also have, is there a way I can actually like click it and look at stuff? I want to actually click on this because I want to show you guys something interesting. How come it doesn't show them?
I think if you cast the white tap, so you stop casting.
Oh, yeah.
You do it.
Yeah, because I think this is like, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So I'm actually going to start here first so that you can actually see where I got there too. So this is the Numerai website. The GitHub's right here. I probably just didn't jump over because I just clicked the cast and the
Network effect is a phenomenon where a service
what did I
is
do?
more valuable than one
It's a video.
Oh, is it this?
Today, those rails which once bravely spanned the mountain have become
Where's that coming from?
network, binding
It must be a
together
video
the far west,
somewhere on
the
chat.
southwest,
Click on the link.
and the south, linking them in
I don't even see a sound button up here. Is it Numerai?
forward traffic across the sea.
Technology-driven networks replace bureaucratic hierarchies.
If you want to
And we
what
think
is
we're
it?
just
Okay, I clicked something. How do you get out of there? Oh, maybe reload it.
Maybe when I cast it, automatically says. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so the GitHub's there, and then also the docs is here. Like, so pretty much all the information I was telling you about is in the docs. But what's interesting is if you go to GitHub right here, which, how do you switch the tests? it just opens a new tab.
If you're just using the same tab, then you can start with just the task.
Okay, here, I'll just copy that, put it in here. So this is going to the GitHub. So right here is where your example model is. So that if you wanted to just figure out the easiest way to like download data, load the data, you can downsample it for speed if you need like a little bit extra speed. And then here's the actual light GBM, like that same little example that it gives you in the docs is right here. And then it puts it all together, like the predicting the functions and then creating the download file. So like all the info you need to start is right there. And what's interesting is if you actually go down, if you're like brand new to data science and like that still confuses you, if you actually start with this first notebook that just says hello Numerai, this is actually a fun notebook that actually goes through the data set itself so that you can actually see like this is like working with like Numerai API, and then you can download your data sets, and then here's what the data set looks like. Here's all the features with the IDs and the eras. Here's like the eras. This is like plotting it out. So this is like actually like a full-on analysis of like the targets, the modeling, the validation process, the performance evaluation, a lot of different ways you can like visualize the data set. All the performance metrics, like everything is in this like hello Numerai packet here, all the way down to like model upload. So if you just need like some extra stuff to look at to kind of get it, that's all there. And then this whole thing, we've been talking about this weird feature neutralization thing. There's a whole other notebook here that goes into like working with feature neutralization and checking out all the different features and evaluating the different features' performance. This is like the correlations of all the features to the target. Like this is kind of a way of like looking at the data and then figuring out which ways that you want to neutralize your models, if that makes sense. So like a lot of the resources besides just the docs page is like they got all these cool notebooks in the GitHub. And that's it. Did I go really long? Yep. What's up?
These notebooks are on Colab, so I don't need to download anything.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah. If you can run them directly in Colab notebook. And I mean they got other fun stuff like this target ensemble, learn how to create ensembles, trained on different targets. That's a little bit more like kind of advanced modeling. And then here's like a pretty easy little script here for like the bare bones example of how to build and upload your model. Like this is like, I think if you open just this model upload one, that one has the example model in the collab notebook, and then you can literally just plug in your model ID and your like key and all that stuff, and then just upload the example model as your own model, if that makes sense. And then you can even make your own little adjustments to that, and then kind of use that as like the framework for creating your own model. Does that make sense? Cool. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off the Siraj's question about kind of like collab. Like, what do you use to participate in the tournament to like, train your models?
Oh, I do mine. Mine's all local. Like, I do use like a IDE. I use like Spider IDE, which I'm not sure if like everybody's familiar with, but I always found that when I use like the collab notebooks, with the data set being so huge, like sometimes there's like RAM restrictions for like running models, and then I would run into issues where I might be able to load the data, but then when I get to actually like predicting the data sets, that it like requires so much RAM that the notebook just times out on me and like shuts off. I mean, I think when I built my PC, I built it with like 32 gigs of RAM. And I like, what can you get on? What's like the default for Google Collab notebooks?
12 GB for
12?
free version. Yeah.
Yeah, and most of the time that's not enough. Are you able to upgrade that though? Like, say you wanted 32 gigs,
Yes.
you like just buy 30. How much is that?
51 GB Collab Pro.
Like, how much is
$13.
Collab Pro?
$13 a month. Or something.
And you get how much RAM?
51 GB.
Oh shit, that's actually not bad.
Yeah.
Okay, I might change now.
That's all we have these.
Okay, cool. Anything else?
How much is the data that we train it upon? What's the shape or the size of the data?
I think I gotta go back. It's like 2,100 features.
4 million rows in training, 4 million in.
Yeah, 4 million rows, 2,100 features, and then I don't know what was the other thing.
30 targets?
That's
Yeah, I don't remember how many targets.
48?
Oh, here we go. 48 targets.
Pretty huge.
So it's huge. I mean, it's over 4 million rows of data.
Why 48 targets? I mean, how?
I mean, they added 12 new targets. So I mean, they're just. I think what they're trying to do is just to give you the most data as possible, so that you can mess around like with this whole target ensemble. Like a lot of times, people will choose, even though you have 48 targets. Some people might just go, "I like this target the best," and like only just target the one target. But then some people do other fancy stuff, like where you can train models on specific targets that you point to, depending on, like, say you do like statistics on them, and you're like, oh, I want to pick this target and this target. Then you can pick like the top 2 best targets that you like, and then ensemble them together to get like your final prediction. So yeah, it's just, it gets like really super complex on like how you can build your models. If that makes sense.
Only one target of the 48 is actually paid, is what you get scored on, right?
Yeah.
For your metrics.
Yeah, it's what do they call it? Which one? It's not Jerome anymore, right?
Cyrus.
There you go. Yeah, so there's one target you get paid, but then you can use the other targets to like ensemble to like hopefully give you, if it makes more sense, like to give you better predictions. Yep.
I can add, like different targets, you can think of it like different direction to your models. So some targets are specifically designed to do well with some constraints, like some volatility or some factor neutral. So some target will perform good in some time, some will perform well on other times. So the more transparent the targets you have, the better models you have.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess like the craziest part of all of this is that you could work on creating like a really, really good model. You run it for a bit and it looks really good. And then at some point, it might not happen right away. It might not happen like right when you stake. It might happen like 6 months from now. But all of a sudden, you're gonna get like this regime shift. And sometimes like you can see it, it's kind of like delayed, but like you'll see like something shifts in like the stock market, where all of a sudden like what used to work doesn't work anymore. So like that's kind of what he's talking about. It's like you can kind of shift into different things for different effects, depending on what's going on. I don't try to do that. I try to like just build one model that works all the time. Like I think that's like kind of the goal. There's other people that literally try to time like the regime changes, and a lot of times what they'll do is like they'll sometimes like doing no feature neutralization works really good, but then sometimes 100% neutralizing works really good. So some people try to shoot in the middle to try to like just get the best of both worlds. Like it just depends on how you want to run it. So that's like where the complexity comes in. Yeah, cool, good. Okay, thanks. Yay.
You want to do a demo?
Hmm?
You want to do a demo of one of the pros while the lunch arrives?
Oh, are we waiting for lunch?
Yeah, I think Joe wants to get it, but.
Oh, is that it? Oh, they're still bringing it up?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Demo of model upload. So like create model, download the file, and upload it.
Okay, let's see.
Just like download the file.
Let's go to model upload. Will this work without me signing in?
You need to sign.
Oh man, you guys are gonna see all my secrets. Oh look,
Oh, it's okay.
we're gonna use Joe's. No, would that be bad? Wait, so you're saying that I should just show the notebook being ran, or what?
Yeah.
Yeah, no
Core box.
You
Okay.
can do.
I'll put my stuff in here, read everything.
I mean, you don't need to like. You
Huh?
can just like, scroll through the notebook and explain it. Maybe.
Oh, you're saying don't just talk about it. Okay. Cool. Okay. So, this is the easy one, right? The food's already here. Okay, that's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.